it's irrefutable. It's a justice, it's a fairness issue, but it's also an inclusionary issue, and it's also an economic issue, and it's a great national priority, I think, for everybody in government, no matter which side they're on. That actually the empowerment and the enablement of the circumstances to permit the full participation of women is absolutely essential, particularly in the innovation, startup and STEM ecosystem generally. It's a really important time to teach young girls that they can have a future in these really exciting, dynamic industries. And I think everybody is aware of that. And I think that what we need to do is understand that a lot of the time the values that drive young girls into what all the fantastic people in this room are doing are actually learned at home as well as at school. So we have to build not only an industry innovation ecosystem, particularly around the SheStarts idea, which is a brilliant idea, and I'm really happy to be here to support it, but also young girls when they are starting out. It's not good enough to just have the boys being the only ones that are interested in the mathematical engineering sort of Lego side of business. We've got to bring that out of all our daughters and granddaughters and young women everywhere.
Sally Ann, how about you? You're in a pretty male-dominated industry. Just a little bit. Just a little. So why do we need to change that?
You know, I think when I think about it, coming from a Google engineering perspective, we want to build the best products for everybody. And the only way that you can do that is if you come from a diverse perspective. And that if you have people on the team questioning every little thing that you do and asking you why, and that's really when you get great results and great answers and great solutions. But I think one of the things even more critical than that is that we've, in recent years, and Lucy was just sort of talking about this, but in the last sort of, 100 years, women are incredibly creative by nature. Girls are incredibly creative. Inherently, there is no difference in creativity between boys and girls when they start out. We socialise it out of them. We really take them to this place and sort of gender stereotype about who you should be and what you should be. And I think we really need to sort of strip some of that away and expose young girls to this, because they have amazingly big ideas and they are passionate about solving problems in the world. And we're only going to solve the big problems if we come together on it. I mean, I think it was, you both spoke about collaboration in your opening remarks. If we're only doing this as men or only doing this as women, we're never going to solve the big challenges of the world. And let's face it, there's some really big challenges we're facing. So I think it's critical. I think it's really important we start young, very, very young.
I think the latest CEO succession study released this week found that there were only 3 female CEOs at ASX 200 this year. So get this little stat. There are still more blokes called Peter at the helm of ASX 200 companies than there are women. Marinate on that one for a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Nicola Hazel, what does this tell us about how far we're still going to go?
Well, I think for a start, we need to start calling all our daughters Peter. So we're going to really crunch that stat. But also what it tells us is we need to think completely differently about how we change that over time and where we invest our energies to see that change happen as fast as possible. And that's why the startup space is so important. If we want to see more women at the helm of ASX 200 companies, we need to get them at the helm of the companies that are the future ASX 200 companies. And there is no denying technology and innovation, the creative intersection of human creativity and tech that creates incredible global companies. That's where we really need to focus our attention right now as a purposeful space, because that's how we start to see that change happening. We need to be working to get women starting those businesses, accessing funding, accessing venture capital, because that's one of the big challenges for them to actually get that growth capital, and that's why organisations like Scale and Springboard and Heads Over Heels are so important, because that's the pointy end they really work with that is a big problem. But we also need to be looking at, when we're working with females in startups, how do we build the capacity of women in large companies at the same time to become the innovation leaders? People like Sally Ann, who as she continues to progress up the ladder to one day be the Google CEO, are actually no pressure. But it's that idea that if we actually continue to champion these women who have the capacity to change the organisations they're in, at the same time as building up the capacity of women to start the future Googles, that's how we're going to change things, and we absolutely have to, because otherwise we're really missing out as an economy.
Well, we have two future mega brains. Well, you're already mega brains, aren't you? But two women doing amazing things with their startups. Michaela, did you find it a barrier? Did your gender come into it when you were trying to get into this business?
Yes, and I have to declare that I have a Peter as a partner. So,
Oh.
so I probably had a step up there. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm Indigenous, I'm female. I operate a tech company from a really remote area in Australia. I love it when you go and pitch to an investor and they're like, oh, Michaela, I'm just going to be really honest with you. And I was like, okay, what's the honest part? Yeah, and you're just high risk. So I unfortunately wasn't able to access any kind of capital to start my company, which led me down the path of grant programs.
High risk, high return.
Yeah, that's true, hopefully. Yeah, so I was able to mostly self-fund my venture through working like a dog and then working at my business at the same time. And then
Clearly, that's not ideal.
no, it's not ideal. And yeah, so I was able to access grant funding actually through Department of Commerce and Cabinet. So I was really lucky to be able to be given an opportunity to take my product to market. Yeah, but it is really a difficult situation when, particularly a lot of us, you know, we haven't been trained in business skills. We haven't been trained in the languages that we need to know to approach investors and be listened to and heard.
Yes.
So I think that's, you know, while we're all learning coding and doing technology and making incredible things, one of the things that I realised was that I needed to invest in myself in a business degree or business diploma to be able to speak the language, so I could, you know, just jam my foot in the door a little bit to get the conversation and speak the same language. So.
Oh, that's really interesting, and I think something that a lot of people would be very keen to hear about and explore a bit more. How about you, Sarah, getting into the startup world? Did your gender play a part in that, good or bad?
I think that when I first entered the entrepreneurship world, I was quite naive, and so you don't know, you don't know. And so I kind of entered it just full on and just going on that roller coaster.
Yeah.
I intersect both worlds at the moment, such that the technology company as well as the film industry both have the same statistics for gender inequality. So if you look at the past the film industry, 32% of women are producers and 18% of women are directors as well. So they themselves have the same challenges, and so these intersections can also be opportunities for collaborations and opportunities, and such that I think that those have been some eye-opening experience going into the film industry, not having the film experience in the background. I, for some reason, when I start businesses, I'm generally 6 months pregnant. I don't know why, but that seems to be a magic number. So 6 months in, started the first company. I said, all in or all out? You can always get another job, it's not a big deal. That was great, bootstrap every single dollar, and that was fantastic. And then now this technology company, not knowing the community and everything that has been unpacked as a result of being part of this fantastic ecosystem, I feel like that journey is that much easier. There still is, while it's pregnant, I'm not pregnant now, but while it's 5 months old now. However, while it's pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, and sales sells all. You have to go out and you have to sell yourself. You have to sell the story of what you're trying to build. And you go and you're chatting with a prospective individual, and they look at you and you say, don't worry, after this child is born, don't worry, I'll be back. And so I think the stigmas that I put on myself to say, like, don't worry, I can do it all. I think there's a wall that I put on because you don't want to look vulnerable. You don't want to seem like you don't know it all. And so those are probably some of the lessons learned thus far.
Obviously, in your business, you need to employ people. I'm wondering if that's a way that you are able to address that gender imbalance. And is there the personnel out there?
Absolutely. And so you'll see right here to your left, Jenna Lagar, female. And I think that generally a lot of the equipment thus far hasn't been that the opportunities haven't been open for female cinematographers or female directors. And so our equipment is just as powerful, but they're small and nimble. Because we do documentaries, we don't want to get people's faces with large broadcast cameras. But they can tell impactful stories, if not better, because you don't move there.
Sure.
And so we have all the equipment, and we also upskill everyone to have a primary, secondary, and tertiary skill set so that when they graduate, or should they go back into the industry, they are prepared to take any challenge that faces.
Well, we know at the moment tech companies, of course, are leading the global economy. You just have to look at companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, Uber, all the big ones. But I'm wondering what sort of role these companies can play and the broader corporate sector in driving female participation and, most importantly, leadership.
It's a great question. I think there's multiple fronts that we have to play a part of. We certainly are very engaged in this. Two, which I'm just going to cover in Australia because I think they're really important, but there's something that we do globally. But these are two things that I lead. One is our K-12 education space, and we are passionately committed to and have been engaging with more than 60 partners across Australia and New Zealand to actually work on changing the national curriculum. So if we want to get more girls into the tech industry and into the variety, but not just being coders, not just being computer scientists and software engineers, we know that we have to actually start at kindergarten because every bit of research shows that kids are making gender-biased career associations as young as kindy. That means boys are associating nursing, teaching as female careers and not for them, and girls are also going doctors, computer scientists, astronauts, inventors. I could never be Elon Musk. So we have to completely change that. We are in a really fortunate position though in Australia that we have this generational change happening with the digital technologies curriculum from next year, where every student in this country will start learning computational thinking and computer science. It's phenomenal. It's been a very long, hard slog to get there. And we're working on these huge programs. It's not about us leading the way in this, it's about us actually being really humble and going, you know what, we're really good at scaling, we're really good at making things free and accessible and open, so how do we find the right partner to scale something really big and train every single in-service teacher across this country and make them both equipped with the skills that they need on the curriculum, but also passionate and excited, and then point them to programs like this, point them to women who are out there in business, building businesses, doing amazing things, so they're not just going, oh, I'm learning to code, I'm learning some computer science, but they're actually understanding that computer science married and merged with your passion, with another problem, with another discipline, is actually going to be the answer to solving the world's problems. So if they're a young girl growing up in a rural place in Queensland, just like me, and their parents own a fruit and veggie shop and they've never finished school and they're the first one to finish school, you actually can see a pathway versus stumbling around in the dark and just hoping blindly that you land up where you do. And I think that's the sort of role that we need to play. We need to do it collaboratively. This isn't a competition. This isn't about our talent. It's not about us getting people at the end of the day, although we love more women. I would love so many more women to join in the office. It would be amazing, and we can talk about all sorts of things that are, not just gaming, because not that that's all the boys talk about. We do a baby challenge and they all participate as well. But, we need more young women coming up the ranks, but we actually really need them in Australia in every single industry, innovative with the skills. So, we've got a real role to play in partnership, both with government, but also with, with other leaders out there in universities and helping change that. I don't know if you know, but there's only 4,000 domestic computer science graduates a year in this country. 12,000 in total, 8,000 of them are international students, and they go home, most of them. 4,000. We're not talking IT here, we're not talking business skills, we're talking computer science graduates. And about 17% are women. So we've got a really long road to go in actually inspiring girls, young girls out there, girls as young as 6, to come on this journey and be part of it. And I think raising the visibility of women who are starting there, not just the ones that excel, but it's the CEOs of companies, but those that are founding, that are starting, that are doing the hard yards and showing the vulnerability on the journey, that is so relatable, and that's such an inspiring path for people to follow.
Absolutely. Lucy, we've heard Sally-Anne talk about leadership and some of the pitfalls there when there haven't been trailblazers, this potential to be fumbling around in the dark because a path hasn't been lit up. But you have been a trailblazer for so many years. You've done things that other women have not been able to achieve. How hard is it? And do you need a grand vision? Did you always want to be Sydney's first female Lord Mayor? Do you start with a big plan? Or are you just taking incremental steps?
Well, I mean, I've always had a passion for cities, about how cities work. I love travelling and seeing how other cities work, but most of all, I've always loved Sydney a great deal. So it's my passion for Sydney that actually led me to write a book about Sydney and then into the town hall, when Frank Sartor was the mayor. It was driven by my passion. So I wish I'd had a passion. I'm a classic case of somebody who actually really liked science at school, but this is in the 70s. I went to school in 1975, so it was a long time ago. It was kind of inconceivable from a family of lawyers that I would go into architecture. I probably should have been an architect or something because I just love design and how spaces work and stuff like that. But that kind of wasn't on my radar. I think for probably for gender reasons and also for kind of expectation reasons. So that kind of that's why I think it's so important for people like this group together and for this movement to happen, to actually empower women to see that they have infinite choice in their passions, in their careers, and how they fulfill their passions in their careers. I've been very lucky that I've been able to express that in different ways. I've also, been involved in a lot of innovation companies, been on the board of innovation companies. I love that intersection between innovations and cities and how people experience and live in and attach themselves and feel part of an urban experience.
Nicola, you've worked in the political world, now you're in the startup world. How important is female leadership? How can it make a difference, and how are we going to address this divide?
Gosh, how important is female leadership? How important is great leadership is almost the question I think we have to ask. Because it's almost, how do we have this conversation without it feeling like we're talking about another? I've worked for great female leaders in politics. I've worked for great female leaders in the not-for-profit sector. I never worked for any great female leaders in journalism. I only ever, in fact, when I started out life as a reporter working in Canberra, I worked in the Channel 9 Bureau for Laurie Oakes, and I was the only female in that bureau. And that was like my second job out of uni. So that makes a difference in terms of how you see yourself and how you think about the way you should operate in the workplace, what's okay behaviour, what's not okay behaviour, what your role is as a woman, whether you are the person who goes and gets the coffee. That kind of stuff does happen a lot, and I certainly saw the impact of that, and then going and working in politics in Queensland as an advisor and working with female leaders and the female premier, the first female premier elected in this country, how that shifts behaviours. In fact, I think I was talking to Verity for a story on SheStarts, and she was talking about when she was working in politics before being head of social inclusion here at UTS. But when she first was working in politics, that idea of when you look around and there aren't any men there, you actually don't see how you're going to get into those, when only women, you don't see how you're going to get into those positions. and yet when women started to come into the political environment, the behaviours of everybody changed, and it just became about great people, great leaders, and not one gender or the other. So it's actually important that we think about how we get great leaders and just acknowledge that women have got to be part of that. It can't be one or the other, and it's certainly not a fight or a battle, although some days it might feel that way. But it's also important to recognise there are great male leaders that we need out there. I mean, I work for one of them. Sebastian is a person who has gotten behind diversity like no one else. It's phenomenal, and this stuff happens because we have great male leaders who cherish great female leaders as well. And I think Lucy would attest to that too.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the best things that actually the BCA, I think it's the BCA that's responsible for this, and other organisations too, I'm sure, is that idea of creating a group of male champions for change, because we shouldn't need men to champion change, but it actually really helps if they do, and they have done an amazing job at championing change. And this is the paradox. It would be great if we didn't need that, but they have done it, they are doing it, and that's a very powerful thing too.
There's something really interesting, just to add to that, there's something really interesting that happens when you do change the gender ratio. So Carnegie Mellon in the US had pretty much the standard rates that we all had for computer science, around 17%. And within 7-8 years, actually got to gender parity. And the journey that they had, if you want to read about this, Kicking Butt in Computer Science, great book. Super easy to read. But the thing that was really struck me when you were reading through that, not just the how they did it, and they weren't making it female friendly or anything like that, they just removed some very obvious barriers, is they actually changed the diversity of the entire cohort. Not just having more women, but for the first time there were men coming into the program who previously would not have engaged in it because they thought it was too techy, too geeky, and they liked other things in life. They were more prone to, they were more interested in actually looking at the intersection of technology and the arts, for example. So they actually changed their entire diversity flavour, not just gender. And I think when we solve the problem for women, we actually solve it in a bigger way. It is actually not just about women. There's an amplification that happens in what we do in the ecosystem. So if we can solve it for women in this space, imagine what we're actually going to do for equality more broadly speaking. Imagine about, people that are from low SES backgrounds that maybe haven't had the educational opportunities that some of us in the room may have had. Imagine people, different cultures, refugees. It just changes the dynamic for everyone. So I think it's incredibly important to think what we're doing is bigger than that. It solves it for women, but it solves it for the world, really.
And I think particularly now, because creativity is so often, and I think increasingly more often, will be digitally expressed. So if you want to be an artist, you will probably be working in a digital environment. So, typically lots of girls did art and watercolours and stuff like that. Well, everybody can, that's great. We all love watercolours, but in fact, if you want to be on the cutting edge of creativity, you will probably be working in the digital world.
And it also goes without saying, the research shows female leaders of companies in America are driving better bottom lines for those companies, greater returns for their investors. So from an economic standpoint as well, female leadership just simply matters. But that diversity that comes with that, when suddenly you see different people coming through different roles, when you start to see women moving out of soft traditional roles, by the way, as someone who spent most of my life working in communications, it's not soft. But really when you increase more men going into those positions, as well as more women going into other positions, and then all of them feeling that they have the capability to move up the chain, regardless of whether they take time out for family. I mean, these are kind of the bigger issues as well that prevent that trickle-on effect for women as they move up the chain, because we still have these real cultural barriers as well, and that affects diversity.
I guess another thing we need to do as women is play to our strengths. And there was a SheStarts LinkedIn report that was released today, and that's showing us that female entrepreneurs are very, very well connected. They have more than double the number of connections that the average person has on LinkedIn. That's pretty phenomenal. And many of those connections are global. Michaela, we know that you're running a company from a very, very remote location. I'm wondering, how do you see that ecosystem, and how do you reach out and connect with mentors and other people that you want to reach out to?
Yeah, well, I love digital technology for that. So because I'm in a remote location, we have about 300 people in our town. Darwin is 3 hours drive away from us. And I think without the internet, I'd probably go crazy. I definitely wouldn't be able to do my job. The internet, having internet access is essential to be able to do anything in a remote area. Sure, you know, we use the internet for telehealth, so we've got telehealth presence. We use it for legal advice. We use it for education. So a lot of our school kids in the senior years are actually doing school there in our community. We use technology for basically every facet of our life in a rural and remote community. And it enables me to have really strong connections around the world too. So basically, when I'm looking for someone to mentor me, I'll look at who's the best person in that field. And there's a number of platforms that I use to do that. One of them is Stick Clara, which is run by Ramona Pierce. It's absolutely fabulous. So I recommend everyone gets on there. And I find out who is that person, who's done it. And I think I said in a recent media article, a friend of mine told me a long time ago, would you rather fly in a plane with the academic specialist or expert on flight theory, or would you rather hop in a plane with a pilot that's taken off and landed? And I was like, yeah, I want to go with the guy that's done it. I'll go, yeah, I'll be there. So yeah, I find those people that have done and already faced what I'm facing, and I reach out to them. I'm shameless. So I'm just like, I'm from Australia, I'm a Indigenous person, I'm really interested in this, I'm facing this challenge. Could we connect over Skype, or could we connect on some other platform? And most people say yes. They really want to help. They do really want to help. So
I think though there's a stereotype that women can be quite territorial. So how do you, do you even need to navigate that, or do you find that when you reach out to people, they're quite generous with their advice?
I've been really lucky. Most people have been incredibly generous with their time with me. And I think, that's one real strength that Indigenous women have in particular, is that we're very well networked. We've got this thing called the Black Line, which is way quicker than Facebook to find out anything that's going on. But yeah, we have this incredible women's network, and really that's our way. And being able to tap into that, I feel very privileged, because most of Indigenous women, we've got businesses everywhere, we're really well connected, so being able to draw on the sisterhood to do that's amazing. And even in non-Indigenous women as well, I often reach out to other women and they'll know someone who knows someone that can help. So I feel really empowered to be a woman in this space, and I haven't really come across anyone that's been incredibly territorial. So I mean, my work too is really unique, so yes. I don't feel like I'm treading on toes at the moment. I might in the future.
Sarah, we've got some people very much invested in the startup game. I'm just wondering, unfortunately, we're going to whittle this cohort in half. So what advice would you give, well, everyone really, about seeking mentorship and advice on this pretty amazing journey they're about to go on?
It's a really good question, because I think when I first started my startup journey, I didn't quite know how to answer that myself. When you're looking for mentors, it's really first to unpack your self-awareness and who you really are. Because once you go on this journey, you realize that when you start talking to individuals, they almost start to depict or think about who you might be, your true value, your true soft, your true aggressive. So I've heard all of those things, but rather than aggressive, I'd rather be seen as assertive. And so the language needs to shift. And so to meet with the right mentors, the right communities, that tends to be the right direction as well. I think at the early days as well, the lack of confidence, or the inability, or the lack of the feeling of not knowing enough, or not or seen as a fake, is constantly going through the back of the startup journey as well. And that doesn't go away, unfortunately, in my opinion, so far. But at the same time, to know your value. And that's easier said than done. But that was learned the hard way. To know that your value in time, your value in a dollar, your value in everything that you do across anything that you want to achieve, and what does that ripple look like in the larger equation ecosystem itself. those would be my main points.
Well, there you have it, some great sage advice from these wonderful panelists on stage. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time. Please put your hands